fortunate again to have Rob Siegel from Berkeley Softworks. He was here last year and demoed some GEOS for us. Today he's going to do geoPublish and answer some GEOS questions for you. So, Rob?
Well, I recognize some familiar faces from last year. I'm Rob Siegel, and I'm with Berkeley Softworks. How many of you were here last year when I spoke? Alright, so there's a good many of you. Okay. Berkeley Softworks were the makers of GEOS, which you see on the screen. I'll go into how the whole network works and what it is and what the programs are. A little bit of background on Berkeley Softworks. We are a 4-year-old company. We started out doing hardware development, doing in-circuit emulators or ISHMs, and those are things that allow programmers to program more efficiently and find where bugs are in the code. When we couldn't make anything, when we weren't making any money, and that turned out to be a real problem because we all wanted to feed our families, we decided to do GEOS. GEOS, we started it in August of 1985, and our first release, version 1.0, came out in March of 1986. What GEOS was designed to do was to give a graphic interface with icons and pull-down menus for the Commodore 64 and 128 computers. We started shipping 1.2 in June of 1986, and by the end of the year, combined with 64C sales as well as, combined with 64C sales as well as our own sales, there were over 400,000 units sold by the end of 1986. And I think that actually is a cumulative number, through the summer of 1987. We have, the Software Publishers Association voted GEOS the best technical achievement for any program on any computer. That's an honor we're very proud of. It took us a lot of time and money to develop this. Just so you know a little bit of background about the Softworks, I mentioned that we weren't making any money for a while. Those are what we refer to commonly as the dark ages, when everybody essentially made subsistence level wages, and we were essentially a Silicon Valley success story where we all had a dream to make GEOS an operating system for the Commodore, and it took off anything above and beyond our wildest dreams. So if there are any of you who are programmers out there who have written your own programs, think you have something really neat, from Berkeley Softworks standpoint, just go for it. We were just a bunch of engineers who said, hey, we could do this. You know, we went without money for a long time, and it blossomed into this. So if any of you can draw insights from that, we say go for it. What is GEOS? GEOS gives, as I mentioned, a graphic interface for the Commodore. And it's designed with the initial package with 4 main parts. The first is the desktop. The desktop gives you, this is your file manipulation system. This is what allows you to open files, close files, rename files, all the things you could do from BASIC, except it allows you to do it just by pointing and clicking. Also with the GEOS package is geoWrite, which is a word processor, geoPaint, a graphics editor, and some desk accessories. Now for those of you that own GEOS, I know I'm going back to the very basic beginnings, but right now I'm just trying to get those people who don't own GEOS, just trying to get everybody up to speed. Now one thing I want to stress while I'm speaking, if you have a question, raise your hand and interrupt me. Because the important thing in my being here is to make sure that you understand this stuff. I already know it. It doesn't do me any good to sit up here and go through the stuff. If you don't understand something, or if you have a question, or if you want to know how to do something, put up your hand and I'll call on you, because that's, I found, the best way to do a demonstration. Now, before I go into the software, there are a couple hardware things I want to discuss that help GEOS tremendously. The first, you really can't see it, but plugged into the 128 back here, I have a RAM expansion unit. And there are 2 RAM expansion units out on the market, the 1750 for the 128, which is 512K, and the 1764 for the Commodore 64, which is 256K. These RAM expansion units are actually used as second disk drives by GEOS, and it speeds up the program up to 4 to 5 times faster than normal. Now, since GEOS runs at 5 to 7 times faster than a regular Commodore with a 1541 disk drive, with a RAM expansion unit, you're running your Commodore at about 20 to 30 times faster than it's normally used to running. And if you don't think that makes a big difference, wait till I show you how fast it can load in a 90K program. Are there any questions before I get behind here and start rolling into the software and explaining some other things?
What does the RAM expansion cost basically for the 64?
Okay, the question was, what does the RAM expansion unit cost for the 1764? And I believe it's between $110 and $140, depending on where you shop. Check mail order in the back of magazines. That's the quickest and best way to go. By the way, I think I said I was going to mention two hardware things that are important. The second one is the 1351 mouse by Commodore. GEOS requires an input device, joystick, mouse, trackball, light pen, etc. And if you've never worked with a truly proportional mouse, get a 1351, plug it in with GEOS, and you're going to be amazed at the difference. I see a couple heads nodding up and down like, yeah, there's a big difference. The joystick can only go in 8 directions, and a mouse can go in, I think, 180. What's meant by truly proportional is the movement of the cursor on the screen corresponds exactly to your movement across the desktop. So if you move 3 inches across the desktop, you can see the cursor move across the screen 3 inches. There was another question right here.
Yeah, I have choice. I've had issues. When I load it up, I don't get the arrow. All I get is a little block and 0 bytes free and 166, which
It should say 165K.
yeah, I get 166.
Okay, the gentleman's having trouble when he moves to 0. How many files are on the disk? Does it say?
26.
And it's a 0 by 3. 0 by 3 and 165. And you don't get an arrow, not even in the upper left-hand corner? Are you plugged in with a joystick?
Yes.
Tell you what, do you have your disk with you? All right, well, when I'm done speaking, what I'll do is I'll go through it. Sounds like you might have a bad disk. But what I'll do is when we're done, I'll go through and ask you a series of questions, see if we can isolate your problem. In the meantime, what I'm going to do is try and scroll around to the back here. Now, I talked about the RAM expansion unit. I want to make sure those of you in the front, can you see my cursor? Right now, it's down here by the printer. Okay. Right now, these two icons right here represent disk drives. This top one represents the 1571 disk drive that I'm pointing at down here right now. The second one is the RAM expansion unit right down here. And this is, all it is RAM. If I turn off the computer, anything I have loaded into here will be gone. Ideally, the way it's designed is you transfer files from your floppy to your RAM expansion unit, work with it, and when you're done with your data files, transfer them back from your RAM expansion unit to your floppy for storage. So for example, I've loaded geoPublish, which is our desktop publishing program, onto the RAM expansion unit. And all I did was copy my floppy disk by going up to disk, clicking on copy, which you see right down there, and followed a series of steps that copied everything over. geoPublish is our desktop publishing program that allows you to manipulate graphics and text in any particular format that you so desire. Roger Ledbetter is here in the back. Roger Ledbetter is the publisher of GeoWorld, which is an independent magazine which is geared towards getting the most out of GEOS and GEOS products. To get an example of what GeoWorld can do for you, I think Roger has some extra issues to pass out. You can see, I know Uncle L has reprinted some of the things. You can see some things you can do with geoPublish. Two columns intermixed with graphics. You can do this on any printer, or there's there's a LaserDirect has a service on Quantum Link where you can send him your files and they'll send them out on the laser printer. But now, what is geoPublish, you ask? How does it work? Like any GEOS application, you can open it by double-clicking. Now, I'm going to count this out loud. Are you ready? I'm going to start this when I hit the double-click. 1 1000, 2 1000, 3 1000. That's just the 90K file that we have loaded in 3 seconds. Now, if you don't think the RAM expansion unit is fast, let me do that one more time just so you get the full effect of it. I put it back to the desktop. We're going to load in geoPublish one last time. 1 1000, 2 1000, 3 1000, and there's geoPublish. If you're familiar working with GEOS, everything starts off with the standard dialog box, create, open, quit. All the GEOS programs, and they often interact, all give a very similar, there are certain standards that we have set up, so once you buy your second or third GEOS application, you should be able to get the feel for it right away. So we'll create a new document, and I've got to enter a file name, and we'll call it CTUG. I figure that's appropriate. And now we've got a mess on the screen. What does this mean? Well, right over here you have an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. Right over here you have 25, actually it's 16 different graphic tools in this particular form. GeoPublish is divided into 4 major categories. The first major category is master pages. Master pages allows you to put graphics and text that you want on every page, and it allows you to set that up. You can also set up your column headings, the width and length of columns that you want. For example, let's say you have a footer that you want on every column. You want it to say, if you look at a manual of any software package you purchase, it'll say something like, for a particular chapter, geo-merge chapter, and it'll alternate it between left and right pages. You can do things like that with master pages in geoPublish, just by clicking on this special text tool, and let's say we want to put it down here, kind of text we want to put on, we'll call, chapter 1. And we hit OK, and now down here, chapter 1 appears. If we want to set up guidelines for a newsletter, for example, let's put a guideline, let's say at 1, pardon me, there's my pointer. I put a guideline here at 1, and let's put it at 4, 4.5, and 7.5. Now what I've done here, these are regions where I want to flow text into. Right there, you see where the mouse is going up and down? Yes, you see it? No, you don't? Like I said, if I'm not being clear, tell me. Like I said, I know this stuff. It's important that you know it. Let's say I want to reserve some room at the top for a headline. So I click there, and I click there. All these are guidelines. These aren't going to come out on the printed page. But as I go to my other modes, you will see how I can take these particular features and use them to help set up my columns. You notice down here where I wrote chapter 1, I want to move that. So I can just click on the little button box, move it over here, and now chapter 1 is going to appear on the lower left-hand side of every page. The first, as I said, is the master page mode. The second mode is page layout. This is where you insert your graphics and text from GeoWrite or GeoPaint and put them into your document. Now, for example, you'll notice these guidelines here are kind of faint. What's the purpose of it? Using the keyboard shortcut, I've now hit the snap feature. Watch what happens to the mouse when I approach a line. It'll snap to it. Notice how it snaps right to that? Now look at why that's easy. Right now I want to set up my column right here, and it snaps right to those margins. What I'm doing now is opening regions and reserving them for text. And if you'll notice over here, we've got counters, so I can get exact locations of X and Y to make sure those two columns match exactly in terms of length, height, and length. I click on my text feature. I want text article 1. I open that, and I reserve it for this column right here. Click on the text feature again, go to text 2, open that, and now open this right there. Now I do what's called rippling, or show. Imagine a document where text is going across like this. In fact, let me see if I can find an example of it. Probably everything's in columns in GeoWorld now, so they don't have it. Imagine a document, a report, if you will, with your margin of text flowing all the way across. What geoPublish has done right now is it's taken those margins and moved it in so it will fit into this particular column. And where it left off, so let's say you had 7 lines, hypothetically, a 7-line document, and 3 of those lines fit in when you move the margins in. You still have 4 lines that are long. Let's say you go to your next page, and you want to continue that document, continue rippling that document onto the next page. If you were to select that same document, for example, text 1 or text 2, geoPublish starts exactly where it left off. So let's say you're doing a newsletter. It's a 4-page newsletter. You start your article on page 1, and then you want it to flow onto page 3. You hit text 1 once you've rippled it onto page 3, and the text will continue to ripple automatically, exactly through whatever parameters you set up for it. And if you change the column width and size to put in a graphic or for whatever reason, geoPublish will re-ripple all your text automatically for you. For example, let's say we want to put in a graphic right in the middle here. So we open up a region right there. We go to Geos, and see, I believe there's a photograph. So let's click on this region. We're going to stretch and scale it to fit, and we're going to smooth it. We hit OK, and the photograph that I had now appears in the center of the screen. Question right there.
Does it allow for widows and orphans when it goes over to the next page?
I'm not sure I understand what you mean by
Does
widows.
it take over like one word or leave one word at the end of a page? Does it allow for paragraphs or like divide a word at the end of a page and go on to the next page?
Okay. Geo, what it would do is it'll retain any kind of formatting you had in your original document. It won't split up a word. So for example, if in condensing by the margins you said only 3 words would fit on a particular line, it'll only fit those 3 words. It won't try and split the 4th word and fit that on, so that'll go on to the next page. Is that the question you were asking?
No, does it have a command that won't let it take just one word over?
No. But you can do, it's really easy to do stuff like that. In fact, for those of you who have purchased GEOS and sent in your registration cards, you'll be seeing we're going to be sending out our second newsletter soon. And you can get real good at moving things over so it's positioned just by sometimes hitting an extra return in your document. And in fact, I'll go in to show you how you can do things like that. Question right here.
Can you still have like part of the page go all the way across?
Yeah, you can set up your regions however you want. This is just a standard 2-column newsletter. I can, if I wanted to, for example, open up one large region. In fact, why don't I do that? Let me click on this region and cut it out. Now it's disappeared. You'll notice it's going to have to re-ripple the text to go around that picture, so that's why the lines here are broken. So if we do this, we open up this region here to go all the way over here, and then we want to open up a new region. Say we'll start it right here. Let's do a redraw. All redraw does is redraw the screen. It doesn't necessarily ripple any text. Let me click on this, move this graphic up here. Actually, let me move it right there. If you want to see something kind of neat, one of the neat things about geoPublish is the stretch and scale to fit thing that I mentioned. There. Now I just shrunk up that graphic and scaled to fit in that region. Now I do a show. Watch what happens. This will answer your question. It has to re-ripple the text. The text will appear going across through here, and then I can put the other articles down here. Let's see how. You see how the text went across like that? And now here's my other article here. I didn't put any text in there. I didn't assign text to there. But for example, if I click on this region, I go to text, text 2, open, click on it there, and now that text will appear in there. It's totally up to you. geoPublish lets you do whatever you want. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the page graphics mode. This is where you really spruce up your documents. This is where you really make it look good. Right now, you notice it's re-rippling the text. We've seen so far master pages mode, which allows you to put graphics and text and things on any particular page. Footers, headers, date and time, set up your columns. Page layout mode, bring in text from GeoWrite or graphics from GeoPaint. By the way, also on this package is a text grabber, which will bring in text from other word processors. So if you've got a newsletter publisher, and I think Ray talked about, you've had a lot of people who do this. If you want to submit a column to the newsletter, do it in your word processor. Ray can convert it, or whoever's in charge of your newsletter can convert it using the text grabber, and then they can put that into geoPublish as a GeoWrite file. Okay, now we're on page graphics. What do we have here? We've got our text here, and over here we have all these drawing tools. So for example, let's say we want to put a rectangle around it. So I check my attributes, and now I've got a rectangle around my box. Now let's say I want to change the attributes of my rectangle. I want to put in a rectangle somewhere in there with a particular pattern. So there is a rectangle in a particular pattern. Circles, same thing. Now my attributes are the same, so I can open up a circle right here. But obviously I don't want these things here in the middle of the document, so why don't I just cut them out? But you know what would really be neat would be a really big banner headline that said newsletter. So I click on text, and I click right there, and I want to type in here newsletter. Now this feature is really helpful. I'll give you an example of how in a second. So we get the newsletter, we go to attributes. geoPublish can print in any GEOS font, and it can do it into a point size up to 192 points. So for example, right now we're scrolling up to 100, well, we'll stop at about 150, okay, 142, okay? So obviously as newsletter comes across here, that's too big for us. So we want to shrink it down. No problem, we click on newsletter, click on attributes, say, well, that newsletter was a little bit too big, let's bring it down to, let's say 100 points. That's a nice sized banner. We hit OK, and it'll redraw a newsletter going across there. If I want to move it, all I do is pick it up and move it up here. And there's newsletter. Want to see what my newsletter looks like? Hit the redraw button, and it'll redraw all these graphics that I put in. You can do things like certain features. For example, let's say I draw a black rectangle. I can put white text across that black rectangle by clicking on newsletter, going to attributes. Let's, for example, I can print a particular pattern. Right now I'm printing in black. Let's change it to white. And I hit OK. Let's make it bold, because a bold headline looks really good. And we hit OK, and now newsletter disappears because it's printing in white. No problem. Go up here, find my rectangle, make it black, make the rectangle transparent, open up a rectangle like so, open it, you say, Rob, where's your headline? No problem. I click on redraw, it redraws the screen, and going across the top now, you should see newsletter. Oops, let's try this one more time. Actually should make a difference, but let's do this here. Put that right in there. Let's try newsletter one more time, shall we, huh? Okay, you can see the E there. Now I'll do a redraw. You see the border I put around, and now newsletter appears. If I want to pick that up, again, just click on my resize. Oops. Pick up the rectangle. Move that up in here. Now newsletter appears across the top as black on white. Times that's useful. For example, being able to insert the special text, you can pull out quotes. You know sometimes you see a magazine, pull out a very important quote. You can use that special text to put a real nice sized quote in the article. Matthew had a question over there.
Yeah, isn't there a command that puts objects in the foreground or the
Yeah.
background so you didn't have to go through the extra?
Right. What Matthew was talking about, and this is something I could have done as a shortcut, but I wanted to redraw the screen the way I did for a reason. There are commands you can do for moving things in the foreground and into the background. So for example, what I had done is I had laid newsletter first and then put the black on top of it. If I had, for example, used these two features down here, I could have taken the black background and positioned it behind newsletter, and that would have given us the same effect that we see on the screen right now. So that you have a foreground and background. So for example, let's say you have a line going across a circle, and you have it like that, but then you realize you really want the circle on top of the line. You can reverse the things around. There was another hand up over here.
Yeah, since you're filming this, you might want to put the hour in there and see how you do it.
Pardon me?
You want to finish the word.
Oh, sure, okay. That kind of says newslet. All right, why don't we, let's check the attributes and make sure I just leave it off for my typing, which is entirely possible since I'm not that great of a typist. Okay, it's there. We hit OK. I think it starts right down there. So all I do is open up the region, hit redraw, and you'll notice even down here, there we go, thank you. Down in the lower left-hand corner, you'll notice that I have chapter 1 where I typed it in earlier, right there. All these pages, it's like one on top of the other. Master pages gives us our guidelines, and on top of that we lay our page layout, which is how we bring things in. And then page graphics is done on top of that. This is where we really spruce things up. Now everything we're looking at now is in preview mode. You'll notice the ruler going across here. This is your 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. If you want to zoom in and see what it really looks like, you notice this rectangle I'm jiggling around the screen right now. I can do that just by clicking on the zoom feature. And you'll notice this is first issue of the Jelly Roll. This is what it looks like. There's my graphic right there. That's the width, length, and width of my column. And this is really helpful for when you want to make sure text ends on the same, the exact same space. You can just move things up a little bit or below without having to do an entire printout to see how it looks. And I can scroll around from within this feature. And now it'll redraw the screen. You can see how the text here rolls around that graphic. Let's go back to preview mode. Question here in the front.
Font file that you opened up started with the LW underline.
Uh-huh.
I have a font disk that that doesn't have that.
Okay?
Can it be used with geoPublish?
Yes, any font can be used with geoPublish. The key to the LW, those are laser writer fonts. So if you want to print on a laser writer, these particular 4 fonts that we have allow you to access resident fonts in the laser writer to get near typeset quality. If you want to see how good that looks, I suggest you pick up any of the GeoWorld that Roger has, so you can see the things just look unbelievable. And show it to your friends, say, ha, I did this on my $165 computer, and you guys paid, 10 times as much to get your computer to do it. Makes them feel real bad and everything. It's really fun.
Makes you feel good too.
Yeah, it makes you feel good. You got a good price. The point I'm trying to make is that the LW fonts are designed specifically for the laser writer. And if you want to see what they look like, I think Roger might be passing them out right now, so you all can get a feel for it. There was a question right behind you.
I have an offset printer, and I'm wondering, at the very top of your page, when we receive the camera ready copy for printing, we require a 1/4-inch ripper for the...
Right, for the paper.
Right, it's not. Now, what is the space up there? It's not, you have to reduce it.
It's actually on the, I think there's 1/4-inch margins going all the way around. At least that's what the way it is on the laser writer. Because on a laser writer, I do the newsletter, the GEOS News. And there's a natural border, and I put a border all the way around the whole page on this one, and I've got a 1/4-inch.
Okay.
I'm not sure exactly what that is on all. I know there are some margins on the left and right, and I'm not sure exactly what the top and bottoms are. But that's easily adjusted. You can pick up, if you put up a border, you can, for example, you notice that square I picked up? I can pick the square up here and move it anywhere I want to. So if it's really easy once you lay things out to say, hey, I need to move things around. The whole idea behind geoPublish is to give you a desktop publishing, to allow you to print, published quality documents. And if things aren't right, you'll be able to pick them up and move them around real quick. Question, front again. Go ahead.
Is everything in this done with GEOS?
Yes, everything is done. Yes.
Matrix printer?
Yes. Well, no, it's done on the laser writer. With
Oh, I'm
the
sorry,
right.
yeah, right. But there's nothing...
Correct. Go ahead,
There's
Roger.
4 pages done with a dot matrix printer in this issue that demonstrates the quad density printing and double density printing.
So GeoWorld, there are no page steps done, in terms of, we don't take it, there's nothing taken up for the camera ready. Something I want to talk, I'll get to your question in a second there, and also right there. One thing I want to talk about first is what GeoWorld is. GeoWorld is an independent magazine. It's not published by Berkeley Softworks. It's a bunch of users who were on Quantumly and said, hey, wouldn't it be great if we had a monthly publication on GEOS? And everything they do is geared towards getting the most out of GEOS. We write a monthly column, just usually a brief introduction about our own program and what we're coming out with, and then we essentially leave the magazine alone. Our whole concept behind it is desktop publishing programs like Ventura, when you get them for the IBM, or PageMaker by Aldous for the Mac, will run you anywhere between $500 and $800. geoPublish retails for $69.95. We can't be everywhere at that price and provide all the various forms of customer service that we'd like to be able to for the customer. So we think publications like GeoWorld and things like Quantumly, where we run a SIG on there, are great because then people can help each other. So if you own GEOS and you're having problems getting through to our customer service, I suggest you go to GeoWorld and you go to Quantumly and get your help there. And you'll find that you have a network of very friendly people, many of which who have written their own programs and written some spectacular stuff. A lot of it's advertised in GeoWorld, be it clip art, be it some just Mystic Jim's a gentleman who's written a bunch of fantastic programs with a whole bunch of other people that he sells as shareware. There's a whole world out there, and if you have questions or you want to know how to get the most out of it, publications like GeoWorld, I stress it, like I said, it's independent of us. We don't make any money off GeoWorld, but we think it's great that people are doing this all with their Commodores. There was a question right there, and then I'll get to yours back there. Question right there, go ahead.
What you have there is a full page, right?
Correct.
With a three-quarter of a page open.
Correct.
Can you type a full page somewhere else and squeeze it down into the three-quarter area?
Okay, that's actually a good question. So in other words, could I take this whole page and put it down?
And put it down into under newsletter.
In geoPublish, I believe you can. I don't know if you can shrink down necessarily, but I know you can blow up. So for example, with geoPublish, which is the document that allows you to print on a laser writer, it's a special program that is designed for printing on a laser writer, you can actually have this one page and blow it up into 4. So I'm pretty sure you can actually, I don't know, you couldn't actually see it on the screen, but you probably would be, you might be able to print something out like that. Does that answer your question? You couldn't,
So you're not sure?
you couldn't, at no point could you shrink it and put it into a quarter, into a 1/4 area on the screen. But you might be able to print that out using the laser writer and then doing, you know, a little bit of paste up. You might be able to do something like that. You can't necessarily shrink the whole screen into one area. You, as the camera, see all the neat things they're doing. Now, a question right there.
You're the engineer, why can't you figure out a way to convert the type into the graphic? Because you can make the graphic bigger and smaller, so then it would seem like you could make the text bigger and smaller.
Okay.
Just as something to work on, way back up.
You mean blowing up the text that are in articles?
The question was asked.
Yeah, he's asking you why you cannot bring text from a full page to a 3/4 of a page.
When you can do it with a
With
graphic.
the graphics.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So in other words, take a picture of this whole page and shrink it up into one area?
No.
How did you make the graphic bigger and smaller on the screen?
Okay, let me, all right, I'll show you. I understand what you, no, I think,
Just write in a program that would convert the text somehow to graphic, and then you could do the same thing.
okay. So we might be on some subtle differences here, but let me make sure I understand you. One is I've taken this graphic here and I can shrink and enlarge it.
Right.
Okay. Now you're asking how can I do that with text?
Right.
Well, I can. Here's a region right here that I can shrink up, but it doesn't shrink in the picture of the printing of the text itself. I can go into this, let's say this region right here, and go into the editor mode and make it a larger point size. So I've got to ripple this text first. Do you understand what I'm saying?
If you print the way that the size of the graphic now,
Right.
you print it out, and then you enlarge it and print it out again, does it come out bigger on the page?
Yes.
Then why can't you put confined text into that same square instead of graphics and do the same thing?
Okay.
That's what he's asking.
Okay. Text are represented as fonts, and the fonts themselves, everything we put in here is a picture, but it's not handled as a bitmap in the particular program. So you actually have to go and blow up the font. It's actually an idea that I can talk to the engineers, because actually it's something that
That's what I'm
conceivably
saying.
could
Very
work.
useful.
Right,
Really,
we
very
couldn't
useful.
necessarily go blow up the font. We'd have to actually take a picture of the page and shrink it down.
Right.
The font itself can't be enlarged and blown up. But I understand what you're saying. You know, it's something I can say, hey, that's part of the reasons I come out here to get suggestions. Let me go to some of the questions over here, then I'll get back to you in the back.
Well, that comes to the difference between how you're handling it out on the laser writer. Because
Exactly.
the fonts are going out there as you're telling it to print these characters in this
Exactly.
font at this size.
Exactly.
So unless you have a continuously variable size font, then you'd have to do it as a bit image instead.
Right, and the same thing when we print with fonts to any dot matrix printer will be the same thing. We're saying print from this font library using this font on the disk at this particular character size. There's a question right here.
We have a text grabber and a graphics grabber. Is there a way to grab fonts?
Is there a way to grab fonts? No, not yet, but let me touch on that a little bit. We are coming out with a program. We had a program I called Font Pack 1, which had 20 additional fonts. Now we're coming out with Font Pack 2, which will have 43 new fonts, 10 fonts from the old program, and there's a program written by a gentleman by the name of Arthur Dahm called GeoFont Editor. We have licensed it from him. It'll appear on Font Pack 2 and also on our GeoSpell package, and he sells it separately. And that allows you to alternate existing fonts and create new ones. So that while there's nothing for grabbing, say something from a Mac or something from another program on the Commodore, you can, with GeoFont Editor, design your own font or create, completely new ones. You can make subtle changes to fonts if you want. Roger had a question in the back.
Yeah, it was in response to the gentleman's question over here about page reduction. There is a feature with the PubLaser program that will reduce a page called a thumbnails option, which reduces it 22%, where you can display several pages on one sheet of paper. And the text is legible. It's very small, but it is legible. So.
But you wouldn't see that, which is something I touched on. You can't see that on the screen
No.
per se. It's just something you would see with printout.
A friend of mine has the Hewlett-Packard laser printer, and I think one of the main problems you'll run into in trying to do what I'm suggesting you work on is if the character is in a font format, it takes less memory. If it's in a graphic format, it takes a tremendous amount more memory. So what you could write a whole page in font style, but if you tried to convert that into graphic, you probably would run out of memory.
Well, like I say, it's right now we're just brainstorming, and I don't know what would and wouldn't work per se. It would be something I had to talk to the engineers about. I work in the marketing department, so while I understand the insides of the computers and the program probably more so than most people in the marketing and sales department, I guess that's an indictment against us. But you know, being that I'm not an engineer, I wouldn't know per se. Matthew, you had a question? You had your hand up.
Are you planning to support LaserWriter Plus fonts like Zap potentially?
The question was, are we planning on supporting LaserWriter Plus fonts? Right now we only support a few LaserWriter fonts, and the question is, highly possibly, probably yes. Right now, it's something we're looking into, and I don't hold me to it that we're going to have it done by a certain date. It's just something that I can see us doing in the future because we've done some preliminary groundwork, and we've got 2 LaserWriter Pluses on order. So I think it's something you might see in the future. Was there a question in the back there?
Would it be a good idea to limit the question in the audience to specifically what we're talking about as far as geoPublish?
Okay.
And then at the end, if there's any time, ask more general questions. I'd like to know more about the product.
Okay, that's fine. What I'll do then is I'll show some more features about geoPublish. Then I'll do a wrap up. Then I'll talk about some other things that are happening in this year's universe. And then if there's anything else you want me to show you, I can do that. Okay, so now let me go back to page graphics mode. You can see these banner headlines that I've done, this newsletter that we have going across the top. Let's say I want to go to a second page. Commodore Plus, and it says I can't go to a given page because there is no next page, but I want to create a next page, and I hit OK. And now I'm on page 2. You'll notice down here, CTUG, name of the file, page 2. And here, you'll notice, back where we started, chapter 1, is my footer that I decided to place on that page. Let's go back to page layout, and I open up this text region right here. We'll open it up, let's just say to there. I'll put another text region in right there. And, we'll select our text option, text 1. Now, if I click right there, it scrolled what was left of text 1, what was not rippled. It put it in that particular area. And now I'll put what's left of text 2 into that area. And I can, as I go to page graphics mode, it'll continue to ripple that text. Another question.
Yeah, how many text regions you can open in a page?
16?
16?
Roger might be able, or Matthew might be able to correct me on that.
So you just say to 2 because...
Right, just because, remember right now, this is something you're going to read. So if there were 16 text regions on this page, your eyes would be batty.
All right.
And you wouldn't fit much text in each region. Question?
I assume text 1 and text 2 are 2 different subjects?
Yeah, the text 1 and text 2 files are just 2 GeoWrite files that I have put on a disk.
Now, normally, in an article, you would read down the left column and it would continue under the right column until the article is finished.
Correct. If that's
Now,
what
the way we set up our first page, we didn't do that.
Right. The question is, normally, if you look at, for example, on this page right here that I'm holding up in GeoWorld, text starts on this page and then it goes to this page. What we have done with this newsletter is we have text on this page, and then we put down here in little letters, continued page 3.
Like a newspaper.
That's just like a newspaper, and then a column here that continued page 3. If I wanted to put text here and here from the same article, I wouldn't have gone and selected text 2. I just would have selected both regions for text 1, and geoPublish would have scrolled it from one column to the next.
And it would have showed on the screen where the text ends.
Yes, exactly. Let me show you some of the features I talked about earlier. For example, let's say we want to pull out a quote, and I want to put out, this is, and I want great fun with geos. I go up here, because I want this to be a quote that's going to stand out. I put this right here, and I hit OK, and I bet that's on white, so I'm going to have to redraw that. Here we go. Now I go back to attributes. I'll reduce the point size because I don't want it 106 points. We'll do it in about a 36. And we're going to do this in black, and we'll hit OK. There's another feature that I'll show you in a sec. So you see, this is great fun with GEOS. That quote appears, I hit redraw, and you can see what it's like. I can shorten up this region in here, shrink it down like that. Bring this up like so. Now I'll open up my rectangle feature. Do an open rectangle around this. Open up my rectangle feature again. Do it in black. Now watch what I'm going to do here. Oops, I missed it there. Let's try this one more time. Click on this feature here. Now I have a shadow region. And you can see how the text appears shadowed. These are the kinds of things you can do with geoPublish. The more creative you are, the better you get at it. I'm not creative, and look how easy it is for me to do this. I'm one of these people, I use graphics grabber to bring in pictures, because I can't draw with beads. I get other people who have artistic talent to come and bring these things in. So if somebody is as unartistic as I am, can do something like this, just by clicking a couple times, just by drawing that, you can see the types of things you can create on the screen. We could, for example, have put this text region right in here, and that way the text would have flowed around that. If we want to go back later and blow up the text even larger, we can. Let's say, for example, we want to put text in right here. We want to say, GEOS is, fun. Something homey like that. We click on our attributes and we'll select up. And now, GEOS is fun is going up there. But that's obviously not large enough. So we click on the region, we click on our attributes. We do this in about 100 point. That'll be good enough. We hit OK. Now watch how big GEOS is fun appears across the screen. You can go text going up, text going down, text going across. You can do splines. For example, you can draw curved lines. Watch how it draws. It'll draw lines through any series of points that I have. And you can see how that fills in right there. I can do closed splines. And what it'll do is it'll close up any region. It'll draw a curve through those series of points. And I can fill that in with any particular type of pattern. I can do connected lines. Double click on it, and I'm out. I can open polygons. Now I've got a triangle. Now a rectangle. Now a pentagon. Now a hexagon. Etc. 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 These are the types of drawing tools you have. For example, remember I talked about, Matthew asked about putting things in front or in the back. That line is on top of that circle. Now let's actually click on the circle. Fill it in with a pattern. That's a line. Hit OK. I must have done a line in a particular pattern. I clicked on the wrong one. What I was going to show you is how you can move things from the front to the back. You can see we've got all these regions right here. I'm not even cut that one out. Let's do a redraw here. Suffice it to say, you can move things to the front and back, and those are the kinds of drawing tools you have. And you can see you can run text up and down the side. I can resize this now. So if I want the text to be right there, I can have GEOS is fun. If I open it up a little bit more, it would probably fit. There we go. GEOS is fun. Questions? Right
Now,
there.
could you change that on an angle from left to right, right to left, from upper to lower, tilt it?
Can I tilt it? No, I cannot.
You
You can't tilt it by angle, but I could take this text, click on the attributes, and instead of going up, I can make it down. And now GEOS is fun goes down the other way.
Yeah.
But can't do it at an angle, something I'll talk to the engineers about. We're trying to get most features in, but not necessarily all. And mind you, something to keep in mind in all of this is geoPublish, the manufacturer suggested retail price is $69.95. You shop around, you can find it for, it's still a hot item right now, it's Christmas time, you can find it for $55. If you shop good. Shop well, all right. Even if you shop really well for PageMaker or Ventura, you're going to spend $500. Well, the whole idea behind GEOS is to bring high-level, high-competency software to people, to the average user, people who can't afford to spend $500 to $600 on a piece of software. Yeah?
You can get it for about 43 and change at the warehouse.
There you go, $43, man. He's done his Christmas shopping, he got his bar. He took care of his man.
Warehouse.
So, I mean, and that's good, you know, the more you shop around, the better deals you'll get. And then, pardon me? The 128 version, this, by the way, right now, what I'm showing you is the 64 version. I'm running on the 128 with a 64 kernel, and the 128 version, we don't know when it will be out or the cost. It'll probably, it's hard to say. Right now, all of our 128 stuff has been coming out at $69.95, but that's what the 64 version sells for, and we're not sure what the differences are going to be that much in the product. And, you know, when it comes out, right now, the 80-column version wouldn't give you that much more help at this point. That much more help, that's horrible English. Wouldn't give you that many more features with the 80 columns per se. So the 40 column works fine right now. Are there any other questions about geoPublish before I go into a couple other things right there?
Yeah, let's say that you don't have a RAM expansion board. How many Ks, free Ks you have to run?
Okay, you have 165K on a disk.
Yeah.
Let's say you just have one disk drive.
Right.
You can put in geoPublish, which is 95K.
93. Oh.
So you put that on the disk, you put a font or two, 10K, that's 105K. You've got a couple of, you put on a photo manager, photo album with a couple of text straps, maybe not necessary, that's 120K. You've still got 40K free, and you can also access files from other disks. You can bring text in from another floppy disk. So you could, you know, hit disk and then substitute in another disk, and it can put that into the file.
Oh, I see.
But a RAM expansion unit is highly, 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 highly recommended. It's worth your investment because what it's going to do to your computer is change it. And you say, but I like my 64 the way it is. But it's going to keep your 64 the way it is, but make it faster, infinitely faster. Well, 4 to 5 times, not really infinitely faster, but you get the point. Question in the back.
Yeah, 2 points. Just like talked about the expansion module, and suppose the guy's at 5081, should he, you know, put his dad seller right away, go buy expansion module, we're going to use that. And secondly, you were talking about the geoPublish of 128, you said, well, the 128, the 80 column wouldn't help you out at this point. Does that indicate that I can buy this version of geoPublish and use my GEOS 128?
You most certainly can. Yes to the second question. You can buy 64 geoPublish and use it with your 128 kernel. There are only 3 programs that we put out that you cannot use with the 128 kernel. GeoFile, GeoCalc, and GeoProgrammer. They all work on the 128 with a 64 kernel, and there are 2 different versions of the kernel if I'm confusing you. You can boot up with GEOS 64 or boot up with GEOS 128. 64 kernel, 128 kernel. The 64 kernel is what we're running now. When you turn on your computer, you'll hold down the Commodore key, you get the blue on blue screen. The 128 kernel allows you to go to 40 column mode to run 40 column applications, with the exception of FileCalc and Programmer. GeoCalc 128 and GeoFile 128 entirely possibly will be out by the time I get back to the office next week. GeoProgrammer 128, February. Right, what was your first question?
Was about the expansion module.
Oh, with the 1581. We will eventually, probably sometime in the spring, be coming out with, this is rumor, okay, so how we're going to implement this, we're not sure yet. We'll either make it available over Quantum Link or we'll do a general upgrade to all registered owners. But we'll come out with some sort of desktop and new configure file that will access the 1581 with the 64 kernel. What you can do, if you have a 128, put a configure file on your 1581 disk. Set up drive A as your 1581, set up drive B as your RAM 1571, and then when you boot up with the 1571, you'll get the boot disk and the RAM expansion unit. Go into the configure file right away, set up a 1581, make sure you have a configure file on your 1581 disk, and then you can use both the 1581 and a RAM expansion unit. That's what I suggest you do. I mean, that's what...
I don't have the RAM expansion unit.
Right. You have a 1581?
You're still trying to get me to buy it. That's what I'm trying to find out.
The RAM expansion unit is faster than 1581. And
81's faster than 71.
Right. But if you can afford both, do so. If you can't afford both and you ask me to choose, I would go with the RAM expansion unit. Some people might say otherwise, but that's my gut feel, just because it's so much faster. Question right there.
Yeah, I got two questions
Okay.
again, sorry.
That's okay, no, that's what I'm here for.
Will this support color?
Will this support color?
GeoPublish.
GeoPublish does not support color, no.
It does?
No.
Can you even set the screen color to
Yes,
work with?
you can change the preference manager.
Okay.
You can set foreground and background color, but you can't work in color in a document. In other words, I couldn't put...
You cannot print in color. No?
Correct. You can with GeoPaint, which is the graphics editor program. This is designed to be more of the desktop publishing program, but that's a feature we might add later.
Okay.
But, you know, I'm not necessarily sure. You said you had two questions.
Yeah, it's going back to the RAM expansion unit. I did buy one, and I was having some problems with it. Are you going to go back to that, or you want me to ask you the question?
You want to ask me after that, after I'm done speaking, I'll go through it. It was the person right behind you.
Do you have to use a work disk when you're working with geoPublish?
Yes, yes, yes. You always work with work disk, okay? Flair, you know, anything to get your attention. You never work with your originals with GEOS. We've designed the system so as an owner, you can make as many backups of your application as you need. We want you to work with backups. Really, we do. We don't want you to work with the original. There's a reason behind that. And I don't mean to patronize you. I'm trying to make a point that it's a concept that probably we didn't make clear enough to people in our manuals. The whole idea is make copies and use them for yourself. You have your boot disk, which is, you know, it's your precious, you know, this is what you pray to at night. I mean, this is what you set all your originals aside and then you trash your work disk when you make mistakes. Because all of you people, if you use your computer a lot, you're like me, you make mistakes. You mean to drag things to the printer icon and you put them on the trash can icon. Use your work disk so you have originals. And in answer to your question, yes, you do work with work disks, and you tailor make your work disks for how you will work. For example, we've got things that you won't necessarily need every time you work with geoPublish on the disk. You won't need PubLaser on your disk every time you do with a work disk. You don't need libraries that we have put on. We've given you people libraries for 60 and 80 dot per inch printers. We separated them, so if you had a Commodore, you could, if you have a Commodore printer, you can set it up so things will expand in 60 dpi mode. Or if you have a higher underline 80 dpi printer, you know, the columns are set up perfectly for you already. You don't, you know, you won't need these every time you work with a program. But yes, you should use a work disk. That's the bottom line to that question. Anything else before I just go into some general other things I want to get off of you? No? Okay, good. I'm going to go around the front. I think my mic holder deserves a big hand for sitting here for an hour. Now as I come around to the front to talk to you again, what I want to talk about is something we're working on called Apple GEOS. And you guys can start booing and hissing if you want. There you go. And you might all be sitting out there saying to yourself, Rob, how is Apple GEOS going to help me? What in the world does it do? Are you leaving us? Are you leaving Commodore owners? And the answer is most definitely no. We're taking all of our GEOS line and porting it over to the Apple IIc and IIe. And it's designed so that application data files are transferable between the Commodore and the Apple. You may have heard of a program we're working on called GeoNet. It's a network that allows people who have it's designed for the schools, where you have an IBM hooked up in the middle of the classroom. And you can set up Apple and Commodores to this IBM, and they can download files. So for example, you have an IBM and your son has an Apple and your daughter is working at the Commodore station. They can both download GeoWrite and GeoPaint from this IBM and work with them. And then they could take them home and use it on their own GeoWrite and GeoPaint at home. And then your daughter can give his son a letter saying, "Hi, how you doing?" And he can read it on his Commodore even though she wrote it with her Apple. Application data structures will be identical. Now you might, even more so, there's a more fundamental underlying theme here. There are 6 to 8 million Commodore 64 and 128 that have been sold, and those are approximately round numbers. Double that number. And right now that's how many Apple IIc and IIes you have been sold combined with 64 and 128. There are 15 million computers out there that can all share software, if they are all running potentially under the GEOS operating system. So if somebody writes an application for the Apple, it can be transferred over the Commodore. And the whole idea is so that the two computers will be able to talk to each other through GEOS. So maybe, the booing and hissing was kind of premature. I don't know, you all be the judge. It doesn't hurt you guys at all, and all of our stuff will probably almost always come up first for the Commodore 64. A few sighs of relief there.
Almost.
Well, the only reason I say almost always is just because that's the way it's been in the past, and those are our goals right now. Well, the whole idea, initially text files will be transferred over, but we've written a program that will allow you to convert things over. It takes some time to do, but hopefully eventually programs will eventually be able to run under both kernels. There are some obvious fundamental differences in the machines. But data files, for example, if you have a GeoWrite data file, it can be read by your buddy's GeoWrite data file on another computer. And the whole idea is that this will allow people to, no matter what computer they're using in the classroom, to use, they can talk to both in the classroom and then take it home. My parents, when I bought my first computer 6, 7 years ago, it was a Franklin Ace 1000, which was a rip-off of an Apple II Plus. I moved away from home, and the computer's gathered in dust right now in my parents' room. But I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to be able to get my parents running with GEOS. All we got to add is an 80 column card and add a couple of ROM chips, and my parents are going to be able to use GEOS on an Apple computer, so I can get them working on this stuff. They send things up to me, I can use it on my Commodore. And that's the way it's designed to be. It's designed to help everybody. So for those of you who have both, it's good for all of you. Matthew, your hand was up first.
Will you also be able to take a Commodore disk and put it into an Apple and formatting? Is formatting going to be the same?
Probably not. In fact, one of the things the Apple will support, and that's built into the Apple computer, whereas it's slightly different from the Commodore, the Apple computer will support files. It's very similar to the Macintosh, where you can have folders. So I don't think the disks themselves will be the same, but the data files will be. And there will have to be some way that they can be transferred over, Matthew, otherwise you could never transfer the files. At some point there's going to have to be an intermediary step, but I'm not sure exactly how it'll work. There was a question here.
Do you ever plan to put GEOS out for the Amiga?
Do we ever plan to put GEOS out for the Amiga? Never say never.
Not likely.
GEOS 128 was never going to be an 80 column. Boy, was I wrong. We're looking at our capacity to develop on other computers as evidenced by the Apple. And hopefully you'll see us come out with other products. We're looking at other computer lines, and I think the Amiga is something, the whole idea being to give an integrated network where you could take GeoFile, your database, and transfer that data into GeoCalc, your spreadsheet. The whole idea of providing an integrated network, we might do something like that, but nothing immediate right now.
Yeah, I'm pretty new at this. In fact, I don't even have the first GEOS yet, and I'm working on it. And what I really didn't understand was I don't have the RAM expansion yet, and that'll probably be a while before I can afford that. If I get the first one, am I to understand that, and I have a 1541 disk drive, when I put that disk in and load it into the computer, I will not be able to, it won't fit all of it in? Or?
No, you can. The RAM expansion unit is just designed to be a second disk drive that runs faster. GEOS works fine on a 64 and 1 disk drive. There's no problem with it whatsoever. It's just, it's not real slow. In fact, it's 5 to 7 times faster than a 1541 runs normally. We speed up the bus drive. So you're loading, for you tech weenies out there, 2.5, I can say that, we do that in the office. I'm a businessman, but I'm in the marketing department, so it's okay. It's 2.5, you're loading in 2.5K per second. So it's faster than normal. GEOS takes up a lot of space because it's a large program. But, you know, a RAM expansion unit will help. It's not overly slow, but it's not blinding speed like it is in the RAM expansion unit.
Do you sometimes have to take the disk out?
Always. Yes, because...
Is there still enough room?
Oh yeah, there's more. The whole system is designed that you only boot up with your original disk and then put it away. And then you created other work disks that you work on and you save your data on. There was a question right back there.
Are you ever gonna put Vorpal loader on GEOS? Like the
I didn't hear what you said.
Are you ever gonna use the Vorpal load feature on the GEOS, which is?
We have no immediate plans. It might happen in the future, but we have no immediate plans. Right there.
I can't copy some of my disk on the GEOS 128 copies that I received.
You can't copy them?
I can't copy some of them to make a backup.
The system and backup system should not be copyable. As for the quantum link side, I don't know if it's copyable. The applications you should be able to copy without any.
I get an error when I try it. I left a message on Geo or on
Hewlett, okay.
explaining what I was running into, and I never received an answer.
Talk to me after, and I'll go through what potentially there could be a problem there. You know, it could be. I'll talk to you. I'm going to ask you some questions, and I'll see what I can find out. Question right here.
I was surprised that they didn't put it on a cartridge.
A good question. Why didn't we put GEOS on a cartridge? The cartridges cost a lot more to upgrade than do disks. GEOS is an ever-changing system. In 2 years, year and a half, we've had version 1.0, 1.2, 1.3. We've put out tons of applications, tons. 13 applications. We've done upgrades, you know, and we're in the process of upgrading a lot of things. It's a lot easier to upgrade a disk. People have talked to us a lot about, you know, getting it on a cartridge, but right now, for the main market of user out there, the disk market is the best. If we had the resources where we could, you know, we could devote engineers time to putting them on a cartridge, it's something we look into. But right now, disk is the best way to reach the most people and most easily upgradable for us. Question?
Is there any particular reason why on GEOS 128 can't copy files from a 1571 or 1581?
Okay, the question was why can't GEOS 128 copy 1571 files to a 1581? You can copy them file by file, but you can't copy a whole disk over. And the reason that would run into a problem is because you're loading a 1571, let's say you've got a double-sided disk 330K to a double-sided disk of 880K. It doesn't fit. The two particular disk types are mutually exclusive, but you can do it file by file. Yeah, you can do it file by file, but you can't do it disk by disk, you know, a whole disk over. So if you have any problems, try that. Matthew?
When will the GEOS desktop have a feature where you can select multiple files and drag them over to another disk at once rather than going disk by file by file?
The question was, when will you have a feature for selecting multiple files to copy from disk to disk? And that's really helpful if you use a RAM expansion unit. I don't know. But it's something, it's something that is being worked on in the office, which is why I laughed, because when I walked out of the office last week, some of the engineers getting all excited, hey, you know, we're going to do this, and it's going to be so cool. You know, engineers get real excited about stuff like that. By the way, if I'm bad-mouthing the engineers in the company, it's just because they're engineers. And there's a very playful rivalry that goes on in Berkeley Softworks between the engineers and the marketing and sales, but we're all a family. So we all get along really well.
It's all with a smile.
It's all with a smile. In fact, there's a lot of people that all live together. You know, you'd be surprised that we play football together every Sunday. We're a real close group. So there's no animosity. It's just that they're engineers. Questions about
You're designing this for the Commodore 64, and is it your impression then that Commodore is alive and well, or is it just alive?
Let's ask GEOS is alive and well. There are user groups around the country who are alive and well. You know, there were 6,064 computers sold. So it's the world's most popular computer ever. We tend to think that no matter what happens at Commodore, there are a lot of people out there who are going to continue to buy 64Cs. If Commodore was smart and You didn't hear this here. That's on videotape, so I'm trapped. There's also writers here from magazines. If Commodore was smart, they would come up with a computer to replace the 128 and 64, which would have 256, they could call it a Commodore 256. And it is doable. That they could build, they could run all 64 software. They'd have some problems running some of the 80-column 128 software. Put a disk drive built into it. And I think that they could do it with a 3.5-inch drive and sell it for between $200 and $300. It's something that's doable. Whether or not they'll do it, who knows? Is Commodore alive and well? With GEOS supporting the lower end of their line computers, we think there's a lot of healthy growth for the 64 and 128. The Amiga is a fantastic computer. It costs a lot more, and at this point, there's a problem that there's no integrated network into it, where everything really, your spreadsheet, your database, your graphics program, your word processor, your desktop publisher can all talk to each other. A GEOS on that would solve that problem. When and if that'll happen, I don't have a date for that. So, I hope that answers your question. Being that I don't work for Commodore, I can't say whether or not they're alive and well, but we're going to continue to write software for their machines. Question?
Well, I don't have GEOS. I have a rather peculiar set of hardware, and I'm a little nervous about compatibility. 128, Skiles Quicksilver, SFD 1001, and a 1541 living on the serial side. Okay, I don't know what kind of games your system plays with disk drive access and so forth, stuff that goes directly to the hardware, and a lot of fast loaders tend to go right around the IEEE drivers. So what happens there? Do it work or do it not? Or might it work?
Do it, try it. It's impossible for me to say unless we've done it. I don't want to say no, it won't work, or yes, it will work, and have you go out and buy it. Yeah. If you've got a friend here who's got it, and hopefully you're all friends, you can just say, can you come over one afternoon and you can put your GEOS and we'll see if it works. That would be what I would suggest. And when people have these strange configurations of their hardware, there's only so much we can do. We support over 75 to 80 different printers, and even then there's always somebody who's calling up, if you got a driver for a triple MacWack, 42 triple E, or just like, there's one of those computers made. So what I would suggest is that you just get a buddy, come on over one afternoon, and have him, try it up, and, if it's close, if you're having problems, or if you think it might be just like you think it might work, but you're just not sure, call our customer service or post a message on Quantum Link.
Okay. As far as multiple drives, there's no trouble assigning drive device 8, device 9 to multiple drives on the serial bus.
That shouldn't be a problem.
Okay.
Question right here.
Are you saying that the copy protected disk always has to be on the 1541, but the work disk could be on a SFD 1001?
I'm saying we haven't tested it in the office, so I couldn't say for sure. I don't want to give you an incorrect answer is what I'm trying to say. I'm tiptoeing away from it since we haven't tested it. Right here, Sheila.
Speaking of printers, I've got a new Star NX15 and I got a replacement. I know that there's a driver for it in GEOS, but it doesn't say anything about the interface and what I need to set my interface to. About X-Tech SuperGraphic.
Z-Tech, SuperGraphic, Z-Tech. Try it first transparent. If that doesn't work, try Epson, but transparent should work. And all that means is that the interface isn't going to do anything. Any commands that are coming from GEOS are just going to be put straight through. So that should take care of that. Question right in the back.
Are you ever going to have like a GEOS terminal emulator?
Are we ever going to have a GEOS terminal emulator? Yes. When? Who knows? Will a third party beat us to it? Hopefully. It's something we've talked about a lot, because we do get a lot of requests for it. And it'd be really neat to be able to do something like that with icons and pull-down menus. Whether or not it'll happen, it's just really hard to say right now. Whether it will happen, I don't know. We just had our brainstorming session, and it was something that was talked about a lot. It won't be done in our next round of products, but it did come up and get a lot of favorable feed. question in the back.
You haven't mentioned the fact that your Q-Link connection there is a real nice source for applications, little odds and ends. I find it great.
Okay, he touched on Quantum Link. How many of you subscribe to Quantum Link? There's a fair number of you. Quantum Link is a telecommunications service that we have done. We want to make Quantum Link our major form of customer support. And the way we've done that is we've put up message boards for all of our products. You can order our products through Quantum Link. There are thousands of GEOS users plus Berkeley Softworks representatives on Quantum Link to answer your questions. You can access the Laser Direct service, which is the laser printing program. You can, if we make a new driver, we put it up on Quantum Link first. That's the first place we go with it, and we say, here's a new printer drive. Download it and see if it works. Or if it works for us, tell us, what you think. You can get programs that have been written by users. There's a screen dump program written by, I think Art Dom wrote it. Roger might know. Art Dom wrote it. He's the guy who wrote the GeoFonts editor. GeoDump, exactly. And that's something that Matthew was talking about, I believe, in a number of his articles in Run Magazine. There are so many things on Quantum Link just for, little programs people have written. There was a great game up there called Yahtzee, which was, it was just the Yahtzee game done in Geos, and the guy did a great job. There was, I don't know if this one was up in, I think it was on Quantum Link. There's a war game. It's kind of like Risk. Somebody might, do you remember what the name of it was? Yeah, L Circle. This thing is great. I mean, it's like Risk. It is so much fun, and it runs with icons and pull-down menus. It's a really neat game. So, if you get Geos, we suggest, and in fact, with a letter in our box, go on to Quantum Link. It's a great way to get customer service help. So, here's what I'm going to do at this point. We've been sitting for an hour. Let me have some closing comments, and if it's all right with Ray, what we'll do is, if you guys have additional questions, you can come on up. I have all of our software here, so I can show, or almost all of it, so I can show you if you've got a particular program you want to see running, and then I can answer particular questions on a one-on-one. What have we seen today? We've seen geoPublish, which is, I think, the most sophisticated desktop publishing program out for the Commodore 64, and you all can, make your own judgment on whether you think it's more sophisticated than, than other programs. Not only does it do banners or certificates or cards like other programs that are out there, it does all that and a whole lot more. You've seen how geoPublish works. You've seen the banner headlines up to 192 points, running text up and down the screen. You've seen positioning graphics. You've seen scrolling text from page to page. You've seen how using the text grabber, who's ever the editor of your newsletter, can bring in text that you people have written for the newsletter and just bring it right into geoPublish for him to use. Roger can testify to you how he does a lot of the setup work. If you have any practical questions for how he does it, ask him. I'm sure he'd be willing to help you. We've talked about Apple Geos and how Apple Geos is going to help you, because you're going to have 15 million people who, all of them are going to buy Geos, and all of them are going to be sharing applications. So Geos will hopefully get into the school system, and Commodores and Apples will be able to talk to each other. And we've also, you've seen a lot of that we're continuing to develop more programs. You've had the question about GeoTerm and other things like that. We're going to continue to develop for the Commodore first. We're going to go to the other computers, but Commodore is our mainstay. I hope I've been able to answer your questions and just give you some insight into geoPublish and how it works. I'll be here for your questions, for however long as you need me. I'll turn you back over to Ray. Thank you very much, and hope you all had a happy holiday season.
We'll take about a 10-minute break, I guess, and then we'll come back and introduce Roger and Matt. Let them tell you about their magazines, what they do for a few minutes. We'll have our drawing and after we can talk with